So I'm going to talk a little bit more around, like, philosophically what bots mean to kind of the internet technology in general and people's role in companies. Yeah, a little bit more philosophical than the last ones from Lizzie and Ilka, I think. But just to give you a kind of little bit of background about me, so at the moment I'm working as product manager at Intercom. I look after our... How many people use Intercom, just out of interest? Oh, sweet, okay, cool. How many people use articles or AnswerBot at Intercom? Can I talk to you after, please? I'd love to know what you think. Yeah, I'm product managing AnswerBot and the articles products at the moment, so looking at chatbots, answering questions, and also how people use self-service and help content, basically. Prior to that, I was at a couple of different companies, really looking at machine learning, language prediction, content prediction, modeling how people think and trying to surface how that kind of works. So yeah, very solidly in the area of technology and language and human behavior, which may have something to do with my ridiculous degree choice of computer science and drama, which makes no sense. Yeah, but I think that kind of explains my weird career path as well. So anyway, back to the point. A bot's role is to augment us and not replace us. Why do I think this? So this is kind of something that I've always really thought about when I kind of started getting into technology after deciding that maybe a career in drama wasn't going to be very lucrative. I've always kind of thought that technology exists to allow people to do things that they've never been able to do before, and I don't think really bots are any different to that. I think this is the model a lot of people think about when they think about bots. They're kind of like, okay, cool, we've got a support team, or we've got this kind of group of people, they're doing these roles, and I'm just going to get a bot and it's going to replace an entire human. And I think that's kind of crazy. I think it looks a little bit more like this, where you're kind of in a position that actually you've still got the same team of people, but you've got bots in place to support what they're doing and kind of push them a little bit higher. And this is well cheesy, but give them superpowers. That's kind of how I see them. So really the crux of what I'm thinking about and what I'm talking about is this idea of humans being able to do things, bots being able to do other things, and then those two kind of merging together to become better overall. So, humans, I mean, I probably don't really need to go through what we're good at, but we're way better at kind of going, do you know what? It looks like you've had a really tough time, and I'm going to respond to you with empathy and emotion. So like someone's just had an accident, and you're not just going to respond with call 999 or something like that. Really, you want to respond with some emotion in there, which bots are not great at. The other thing that we're really good at is looking at a completely new situation that we haven't seen before and deciding, actually, do you know what, that didn't work. I'm going to try something that I've not tried before. I'm going to try something new. So they're the areas I think where humans kind of win, in a sense. Whenever I think about bots, I always think about this graph. Has anyone seen this? Yeah. It's basically the idea that you have a manual task, a really manual, repetitive task, and a non-geek would just carry on doing that manual, repetitive task forever and just continue. Whereas geek, I'm using the words from here, I don't really think about geek, non-geek, but they'll do it manually for a bit and then go, this is repetitive and very boring, there must be a better way of doing this, and create a script that, okay, for a little while they're behind the person doing it manually, but eventually they overtake, because eventually that script becomes much faster at doing the same repetitive thing. Bots, that's what they're really good at, doing the same repetitive thing over and over once they've seen it a few times. That's not to say that I don't think bots will become more sophisticated. I think, you know, once we, as a person, a human, has kind of done a thing over and over again, actually you could go, do you know what, I've done that thing 5 times, roughly this is the response that people seem to kind of react to well, I'll make a bot for that. And the other thing that bots are really kind of useful for is when you know there is a thing that happens really repeatedly, like even portions of conversations, like the hellos or the thanks and byes. They're the kind of like little segments where you can just like add a bot in there, and it will save people a bunch of time. The other thing about the idea that bots won't replace an entire human, is the fact that actually, as humans, the rate at which we're kind of becoming more sophisticated in the ways that we communicate and the ways that we connect is just going to increase and increase and increase. And actually, that means that bots are always going to be slightly behind us and kind of lagging, really, because we need to have done those things first to then decide, oh, actually, I can create an automated way of doing that same thing. So they're always going to be a little bit behind. So what does this mean in practice? Kind of have 3 kind of main areas that I think about when we're creating bots. The first one is a very intercom way of thinking about things. We always focus ridiculously hard on tackling problems and also tackling very, very specific problems. So something I've said a lot is just, is it repeatable? Is it something that happens a lot, takes a lot of your team's time? Actually, you could use a bot for that. Is it an area where actually a really timely response would benefit from a bot? That's a really good one, because you can kind of think of it as, is it something that would really benefit from an automated instant response? Or is it something that could be answered when there isn't a team available, sort of an out of hours type of thing? The other thing that I think, and this is kind of very intercomming, is limiting the amount that you take on at once with a bot. So something about AnswerBot, the bot that I'm working on at the moment, is right now we actually only tackle your first question, because after you've had a little bit of a conversation, there's so much context that the bot needs to be aware of to actually be accurate and to do things successfully, that the chances of it being able to do that just become reduced. So we really try and limit, in a way, we try and limit the blast radius, so if it goes wrong, it's kind of only going wrong in this very small circumstance. But also just because it allows the quality of what we're producing to be that much higher. And then the other thing that we think about sometimes is just the value of that part of the conversation. So you can think of this in a couple of different ways. So it could be that actually there's customers that are split into high value and low value, and the high value customers are kind of going directly to your teammates, and the low value ones are going directly to a bot and they've got no way out. A bit harsh. Or you could be in a situation where actually there are parts of the conversation that are really valuable for someone to pick up. So maybe the beginning half of the conversation where you're actually triaging, like, what does this person want? Do they want a meeting with someone? Are they asking for something really complicated? You could probably triage that with a bot, and then get to the point where, okay, actually we've worked out that this is a really high value customer and we want to speak to them directly. The second part of this is, once you have all of those almost like puzzle pieces and like problems that you're solving, you can then look at combining them together to create a more holistic experience. So finding areas that maybe you can apply one or more skill to is an interesting way of doing it. The other kind of long-term view is, how do you make it a holistic experience for your end users? So whether that's a combination of lots of different bot skills or some bot and some human, I think that's really important. You can also take quite a strategic approach to it. So something we speak about quite a lot is if you've got an upcoming launch or event, actually you can probably prep a bot up front with everything that's required to support that specific event or that specific time frame. And then the last one, which is again very intercom, we say we ship to learn, which is ridiculously true. Learn. So before combining just all of these random skills together, actually work out, do you know what, this worked before, and you can learn from the problems that you've already solved and then start implementing a bot for those. And then the last kind of area of these practicalities is view bailing as an opportunity and not a failure. Because when you're thinking about combining bots and people to kind of complete a task, actually that kind of piece where the bot goes, do you know what, I have no idea what's going on and I really need someone to take over, that's a really interesting opportunity where you can actually bail out and decide kind of how to hand it over to that real person. You can think about, okay, actually there's these bailout points where we could learn from and build something in the future to iterate on. There's also a sense of, actually there's lots of things you can do in that handover period. So for example, I think it's the Chief Growth Officer at Marketo said something along the lines of AI will enable sales teams to use data more effectively. And the idea is that, you know, bots can kind of process, and computers in general can process so much more data than humans can. But if you in that handover period go, here's a load of information and context about this conversation and this person, it just makes that transition much, much easier. And then obviously you're always looking to make that experience the best experience and really seamless. So that's a little bit about how I think that really we're living in a world that's a bit more like this rather than bots replacing us in our entirety. But actually I kind of think about it more like this, where there's like these even smaller chunks that bots are taking on to kind of create this web of foundational things that actually push the teammates' experience much further up and cheesily give me superpowers. That's all I have to say.